Okay, this is part two of our World War II notes, and just in the spirit of full disclosure, I do have a dog in my lap. He might make some weird noises. Let's go ahead and get started and see what we can get out of this. So, the war in Europe is officially going to begin with a couple different arrangements. We're going to have a, I want to say temporary because it doesn't last long, but we're going to have an alliance between the Nazis and the Soviets in a Nazi-Soviet non-aggression pact. And as you might guess from the term non-aggression, what we mean here is that they're agreeing not to attack one another. Until, of course, they both decide that they don't want to honor that agreement, as you can see in this political cartoon where Stalin and Hitler are both hiding guns behind their backs while stomping all over the poor country of Poland. So they're going to agree to divide most of Eastern Europe between themselves, and that's going to start with the invasion of Poland. So the eastern half of Europe will go to the Soviet Union, and the western half of Europe will go to Nazi Germany. The war in Europe is officially going to begin on September 1st, 1939, when Germany invades Poland. And very shortly afterwards, the Soviet Union will also invade Poland, but coming from the other direction. France and United Kingdom have already kind of drawn a line in the sand and said that appeasement will end if Germany takes further acts of aggression towards Poland. And once they invade Poland, it's on. France and the United Kingdom both are going to declare war on Germany. And here we just have a couple of memes related to that topic. Again, feel free to pause the video if you want to look at these longer. So, the next step for the Nazis is to invade France, Luxembourg, which is a very small country near France, Belgium, which is sort of in between Germany and France, and the Netherlands, right next to Belgium. They're going to start this westward invasion in May of 1940, and it does not go well for any of those countries. The French government is so taken by surprise that they end up having to surrender to Germany. Part of what made the Germans so effective in this invasion was the use of a strategy they called blitzkrieg, which in German means lightning war. Basically, they attacked so quickly and without any warning that there wasn't really time for the French or anybody else to get their defenses in line. They had no idea that the Germans had invaded. Hi, Ozzy, hi. They had no idea that the Germans had invaded by the time that they'd already moved on and taken over vast amounts of territory. The Germans are then going to set up a sort of puppet government. It's going to pretend to be the French government, but it's really answering to whatever the Nazis want them to do. We call this Vichy France, and most French people hated this fake German created government. And there was a very active French resistance movement to the Nazis. They did pretty much anything they could to ruin the plans of the Nazis, sabotage them, that kind of stuff. France during the Napoleonic Wars, obviously, very, very different situation, as you can see in World War II. Now, with France conquered, most of Central Europe conquered, it is time for Germany to turn its attention to Great Britain or the United Kingdom. This begins what we call the Battle of Britain, mostly because we like the alliteration. So in the summer and autumn months of 1940, Germany is going to begin an air war. Keep in mind, the United Kingdom is an island. It's hard to attack them, but with the new technology of airplanes, that's going to be the main German strategy. They're going to rely on their air force, which was called in German the Luftwaffe. I'm not making that up. That's actually how you say it. And they're mainly going to start to attack shipping centers, factories, distribution areas, places where a lot of manufacturing for the military is happening. But eventually they start to target cities and civilian populations as well. The word civilian means non-military personnel, so like normal, average citizens who have no weapons, no training, none of that. And as you can see from this picture, we have 3 children seated outside of what used to be their home after a bombing raid in London. Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, is going to be the leader that Britain looks to throughout the Battle of Britain. Again, this is where we start to see a lot of that symbolism, keep calm and carry on, strength, resistance, all that good stuff. Britain successfully fights off Germany. What's really interesting here is that there was it's really hard to keep up morale during a battle in which your cities are being bombed. You never know if you're safe or not. Many British people chose to send their children out to the countryside where there was less likelihood of them dying in a bombing raid. But many people, like the King and Queen of England, for example, refused to leave London. They stayed as a sign of bravery and solidarity with their people. So eventually, this doesn't work out for Germany. They give up and abandon this Battle of Britain. So here we go. Another quote by Winston Churchill: "Never was so much owed by so many to so few." Here he's referring to the British Air Force, the Royal Air Force, or RAF. And again, that keep calm and carry on symbolism that I've mentioned before. So Hitler has failed in conquering the United Kingdom, but you know what? He's not going to stop there. For a long time, he has really, really disliked the Soviet Union. They are Slavic, which is not the same as German culture, so he looks down on them. They also are communist, which is another thing that fascism truly hates. So he betrays his non aggression pact with the Soviet Union and decides to invade. And that's going to begin in the summer of 1941. A lot of people mistakenly think that Hitler invaded during the winter time. No, this started earlier in the summer. It just took way longer, and then that's when things are going to go wrong for him. The name of this operation or invasion plan was Operation Barbarossa, which I mentioned solely because it's a super cool name. The Soviet Union is going to fight off the German offensive. This results in a war of attrition. By war of attrition, we mean war with really, really high casualties and just kind of wearing each other down. This is the largest military operation in world history in terms of manpower, or the number of people fighting and the resources being used, and also the highest in terms of casualties, meaning injuries and deaths caused by this invasion. So the war in Europe, continuing this idea of the Soviet invasion, we're going to open up the eastern front of the war because for a while now, Germany's been preoccupied with the West, conquering France, attacking Great Britain, and now they're really turning to Eastern Europe and turning on who was once their ally. The Battle of Stalingrad, of course named after Joseph Stalin, because that's the name of the city when he took power, is very long, it's very bloody, and it has a lot of casualties. We're going to see a lot of battles over Soviet cities, resulting in high death rate for not just soldiers, but also civilians. And what ends up, of course, totally harming the Nazis is they do get bogged down in wintertime, as you can see up here in the right. We basically have Soviet soldiers hiding in a snowbank, probably for hours, just waiting for their opportunity to attack the Nazis. And this is the beginning of the end for Germany in the Eastern Front. This is a huge failure for the Nazis. They do not successfully take over the Soviet Union, and they turn the Soviet Union from an ally into an enemy. This is not a good plan for them. Again, I'm just skipping past these. Feel free to pause them longer if you want to take a look. Now, in Western Europe, we are going to start to have some progress. The Allies are no longer playing defense. Now they're going to go on offense with the D-Day invasion. The name of this operation is Operation Overlord. Again, super cool name. And the idea here is to have a unified Allied invasion of Normandy, which is in northwestern France. So basically the part of France that's right across from Great Britain. And the idea is to invade on June 6, 1944, to try to retake France for France, honestly, to kick out the Nazis. And the name of that invasion day is called D-Day. This is going to begin the liberation of France by British, American, and Canadian troops, and they are jointly led by American General Eisenhower. The Battle of the Bulge, I did not create that name, don't giggle, was going to be during the wintertime of 1944 to 1945. It's basically Germany's last chance to try to beat the Allies and get them to surrender. But unfortunately, it doesn't go their way. Despite taking the Allies by surprise, the Allies are actually going to win. And this is really, truly the beginning of the end of Germany's war in Europe. But keep in mind, Even though we haven't talked about them in a while, Japan is definitely still fighting. So we're just talking about the war in Europe coming to a close. Okay, hey dude, you need to stop that. And eventually the Germans are going to surrender on May 8th of 1945. This surrender comes just a few days, or possibly even hours, I don't remember, after Hitler's suicide. He knew that they were losing. He could not face the repercussions of his actions, and he, like some other Soviet, or not Soviet, like some other Nazi leaders, decided to kill himself rather than face a trial. And we're going to stop there because this next section is pretty intricate. Again, if you have any questions, please contact me with them. Thanks for listening.